Yesterday, I had a full-on breakdown about wanting to go on the same weight loss medication that my husband is on. This morning, though, I decided not to, at least not yet. This is that whole messy story, plus exactly where my weight is right now. This episode's not a lesson I've already learned, and I'm now packaging it up for you after the fact. It's where I am right now, today, mid-mess. That's how I roll. My weight's been stuck around 178, and yesterday I almost quit. And this morning I woke up with 2 real lessons and a plan for the next 2 weeks instead. So that's what today is. You're listening to the Set Point Science podcast, where we explain what's really driving midlife weight gain and loss, hunger, cravings, and food noise. Because you don't need more discipline. You need a strategy that works with the body that you have now and the life you're living today. I'm your host, Sherry Alberts, and on today's episode, my weight's been stuck around 178 lately. Here's why. I've been winging it. Not deciding anything ahead of time, so dinner rolls around and I'm hungry. The kids are hungry. We're in the middle of summer break, so everything's crazy. Nothing's been decided, and then I end up eating some of their food or just throwing together a sandwich, just winging it. So that happened yesterday. I had a tuna fish sandwich, and then that wasn't enough food because I waited until I was too hungry when I finally ate. So then I ate some of the kids' macaroni and cheese too. And actually, that's fine. I don't mind days like this because here's the thing I didn't do. I didn't overeat on their food, because I feel actual control now around those types of foods that I didn't used to have control around, which that's amazing to me. I had enough of the mac and cheese to help calm down my hunger, and then I didn't even get full. I was just satisfied and done, and I sensed that inside my body, and I listened. That whole kind of thing still feels like a partial win, even on a day where I'm just winging it, because maintenance and eating enough and being able to stop at enough, that's the real skill that's important. But yesterday was also the day that I had a real breakdown about wanting to go on weight loss medication. Background: my husband started going on this medication 2 months ago, and watching him have such an easy progress for weight loss while I'm working so much harder than he is, it's just been kind of hard to watch, though I'm super proud of what he's doing. So yesterday I got to this point where I actually was just so frustrated and done, and I was like, I think I'm going to take this stuff. And then I just waited. I decided to sit with it for a day because I remembered advice from my breastfeeding days, which is never make a big decision on your worst day. And yesterday was one of my worst days in a while. So this morning I woke up still leaning towards not taking it. And then there was more conversation with my husband about what he's been noticing while he's on the medication. And a couple of things made me hesitate. So one of them him and I have talked about before is anhedonia. It's a well-known condition that can happen for some people on these medications where you lose interest and excitement in regular life stuff. For my husband, this is interesting. It's actually turning into a real benefit because he's always struggled with anxiety. And so this seems to be quieting something that's been an issue for him for years. So that's a super big, unexpected win for him and for us as a family. But for me taking it, it would be the opposite. I love my motivation. I don't have high anxiety. I love my perseverance and determination. And that's a part of me that I don't want to mess with. It's a side effect that I don't want. The other thing is I can't stop thinking about what happens if I ever go off it. If my cravings come back louder than before, after all the work I've done to get to a place where, a little bit of mac and cheese doesn't set me off, I don't know what undoing that would look like. And that actually scares me more than the continued hard work does. And when we're thinking about these particular medications, the weight loss drugs, the GLP-1s, peptides, stuff like that, these actually change your brain chemicals. That's a big deal for me. There's also a side benefit that my husband is getting that I don't need as well. It's that the medication's gotten him going to the gym every single day, which is wildly unlike him. And it's so nice to see him motivated for his own body and health. But if you guys know me, you know that motivation isn't my problem. I've exercised every day possible for the last 20 years because I actually really love exercise. So that particular benefit wouldn't be useful for me. Now, speaking of exercise, I've shifted things in a major way in the last few weeks. I'm finally at the place where my lungs have calmed down from the asthma, cough, post-infectious cough flare that I was dealing with for the last 3 months. This is actually what I was going to do before all that started happening. Right before I got the lung issue, I started to lose a little bit of weight. I was around 175, 176, and I got down to 173, and then the lung thing happened. So at that time, I was starting to pull back a little bit on heavy weightlifting, more towards cardio. And I thought to myself, I've been testing this heavy weightlifting thing for a year and a half, and there's been so many benefits, but just weightlifting hasn't gotten me the result that I wanted, which is weight loss. It did give me one real huge, amazing side benefit, which is that it increased my bone strength. And that's important to me because it offsets one of the side effects of the cancer medication that I take. So that's useful. I'm glad I did it. I learned so much. But the main reason that I lifted as much as I did was to drive weight loss, and it didn't. So it made it easier to not worry so much about food because my weight stayed stable. I had more muscle and better metabolism, but it never actually created weight loss. So I'm on to cardio, but easy cardio. I've spent about a month testing different speeds and durations on my treadmill, and I found that 2 miles total at 1.7 miles per hour is something that my foot with plantar fasciitis can handle. I think indefinitely. So I compare that to when I tried to push to 10,000 steps a day. Like everyone nowadays, you need to do 10,000 steps to lose weight. And when I tried to do that again, I was just in so much pain that I couldn't manage more than 2 days in a row because it really affected just my regular walking around the house. So this is the rock and the hard place of my body right now, is I have enough injuries and old issues that I can't just do this generic weight loss advice. So I've been modifying it and figuring it out to create something that I can actually sustain, and exercise that I would want to do even if weight loss weren't on the table. So I also started swimming too. If you see my posts lately, it's back in the mix. It's my favorite form of exercise. And now that my lungs are finally recovering after those 3 months of issues, I gave it a shot this week. So the first day that I swam, I coughed. So I swim about 30 minutes total, and I coughed half of that second 15 minutes. Then the next day I went swimming again, and I only coughed the last 5 minutes. And then I went again yesterday, and I only had like 1 or 2 coughs total. And I went again today, no coughing at all. So that's a real improvement, and it tells me that I can be around pool water again. I've been swimming at a local pool, but we at my house have a small above ground pool in the backyard. It's 16 feet by 8 feet by 3.5 feet deep. And I'm experimenting with a tether, which is a device that holds you in place while you're swimming. It looks kind of silly, but holds you in place while you're swimming so you can swim against the tether, and then you can get a real workout in a tiny pool space. I want to get comfortable with that because having a pool right now, here, I have a cat right here. She's driving me a little crazy. Sorry. So having a pool right now in the backyard is about as convenient as it gets. But for now, it's just the dust in the air that's holding me back. I live in El Paso. It's very dusty here. So I'll stick with the indoor pool a while longer before I try swimming outside again with the tether. So I have an under desk treadmill that I love. I can walk slow through most of my workday on it. I don't walk while I'm recording, but the rest of the time I just do that 1.7 miles per hour, and then I stop myself around 2 miles. So that's the routine that I have been testing and working on around the lung issue, around the plantar fasciitis, to see what will actually work for me. I have a recumbent bike as well, but I just really don't like using bikes. So I've been trying to work this out around the things that I actually really love to do. Let's just talk about the length of time that it's taking me to lose weight. I get criticized sometimes for taking a long time. And you'll notice this a lot in my comment section. There's people that don't believe in what I'm doing. There's people that think I'll never lose weight. There's people that think my quote unquote method doesn't work. And here's the thing. The reason this happens is because we are used to seeing people's highlight reels online. So if you see someone who's thin, they're not really going to tell you the whole process, the hard stuff of when they failed and they had to figure stuff out and work around their life. So folks who are watching me are accustomed to that, and then they assume that if what I teach actually works, it should be faster. I should be done with this already. That all of the things I'm doing, all the things that are happening are just excuses. But actually, what I'm showing you is the middle. The messy middle while I'm still in it, not some polished before and after. And hey, once I have that polished before and after, you better believe I'm going to be showing that one off. But I have real things that I'm dealing with. The plantar fasciitis, my lungs, 3 kids at home, summertime. We've had no less than 4 or 5 kids in my house nearly every day because I've been helping friends with their kids over the summer too. And that's a lot more exposure to kid snacks and kid food than usual on top of everything else. Plus, working on the business, keeping the podcast going. And for those of you who sometimes feel like your weight loss isn't going fast enough, you might have that thought in your head of, oh, well, these are just excuses, right? No, stop saying that kind of stuff. It's not excuses. It's real life. Let's honor what it actually takes for us to do this in a real life while accepting that we have limitations sometimes and we have to be able to be creative and work around those things. So the reason this takes me a while is the same reason that it might take you a while, that I'm navigating my own real specific challenges while also showing you how to navigate yours. When I work with clients, that's literally the work we do, is we find out what works for your specific life, not some generic plan that someone gave you. Because I don't have a coach, right? I have to coach myself. So my own lessons come slower than they would if someone else were coaching me. And when you have a coach who can see everything from the outside and the top down, progress can be so much faster. Okay, so as a coach, here are the 2 lessons that I've landed on most recently. The first one is that I realize I've been subconsciously, not even noticing it, pushing weight loss by trying to skip dinner. And then I beat myself up on the days that I quote unquote fail. That's an old pattern. It's how I lost weight in college. It's what I always defaulted to during Dr. Furman's challenges. Like I would do the first 2 meals and then I would almost never have the dinner. And it's exactly why those approaches were never sustainable for me long term. I believe now that if I had actually had dinner and not been so afraid of having dinner, this all would have been a lot easier for me during my life. The funniest part to me is that it's not even what I teach clients now. I teach the opposite. And I need to take some of my own medicine. So in more detail, what I'm finally sinking into is that it's better to eat a little more food with a small deficit during the day than to force a big one, which is what the diet industry is always telling us to do. You know, you always hear this. I mean, ever since I was younger, I've heard this advice, eat 1,200 calories a day if you want to lose weight. But for me, what I'm learning is that enough food now clearly means protein specifically. I've tested this enough that it's not a hypothesis anymore. It's an observation. When I get about 50 grams of protein at breakfast and another 30 to 50 at lunch, my evenings get really simple. I'm just not interested in my kids' food. It's not effortful. It just happens. And I want to make a note about this idea. Well, maybe you could have done Dr. Furman's plan and just had dinner and you would have been more satisfied. Yeah, maybe. That's actually probably very true. I had real food issues that I had to deal with at that time. And what I always noticed was after my second meal of the day, I was never satisfied. So it's not exactly the same. I did try to do nutritarian again in this last few years, but I would notice I could never get past that middle part of the day without binging on something extra carb-wise, fruit-wise, or, some kind of cracker or something like that. And I get a lot of comments about, well, you should have just eaten potatoes. You should have just done this, whatever. I've tried all the things, right? I don't really like potatoes. So to push something that you don't really like is exactly what I'm talking about. Pushing past what actually feels good for you is not sustainable long term. Maybe it'll work for a little while, but not forever. And I have tried to do the potato thing. I've tried to do all different variations of this over the years. And I have found for me what is the most satiating is actual animal protein. And I have a real important piece of this puzzle now, which is that back in the day when I used to do nutritarian, I didn't have any kids, and now I do. I have 3 children and I have to cook for them every day. And the foods that they eat are higher calorie foods. So when I'm cooking for them and I'm cooking for myself, the total of the amount that I have to cook during the day has to be manageable for me. When they're in school, I need to help them with their homework. I need to pick them up from school. I gotta get groceries, prepare food, give them baths. I have to be present for all of those things. I have to help them get up in the morning, make their breakfast, all that stuff. Plus, I have to exercise during the day. I enjoy working and I need to work as well for our family's income. And so when you put all of these things together, eating in a nutritarian way is not possible for me from a time perspective, from a satisfaction perspective. And when you put all that stuff together, now I have found the way that works for me, okay? And what that is for me is now, hey, I'm going to have dinner. I'm going to stop forcing intermittent fasting. I'm going to have dinner. I'm going to have a slight bit of hunger when I'm going to bed. And that's how I know I'll be losing a bit of weight over time. And that's what I'm going to do. So I noticed I was subconsciously pushing much more hunger than I needed to. Now, the second lesson clicked more into place this morning, looking back at yesterday's sandwich situation. So it happened because I hadn't decided anything ahead of time. And I call this in my program planning, but really what we're doing is just making decisions ahead of time. Decisions that are easy to follow through on. Like when I talk about the difference between having salad and potatoes and all my G-bombs and stuff like that, with the way my life is set up right now, creating that type of a meal 3 in a row, it doesn't fit. But if I make decisions about meals that are actually sustainable, fulfilling, they satisfy me, they taste good, and they give me the right amount of protein, it's easy to follow through on. And then if I make these decisions ahead of time and I realize I'm not following through on it, it's not a lack of discipline on my part. I'm just going to change the plan to decide something that's going to be easier to include. And there's a real psychological piece underneath why deciding ahead of time helps us so much. And they call it decision fatigue. So it's a well-studied psychological idea. The more decisions you've already made in the day, the worse your judgment gets on the next decision. And food is one of the first places that shows up. By the time I'm standing in the kitchen at 6 p.m. with 3 to 5 hungry kids and nothing decided yet, my judgment is already worn down and I'm going for the fastest thing possible. That's just how decision making works. It's not lack of discipline. It's like this for basically everybody, okay? And what I've been learning over the last year or two is that deciding ahead of time doesn't mean deciding on a salad because I think I should. It means deciding ahead of time to eat things I'm actually going to eat, things I'll actually like, that are fast to create, easy to eat, and they have enough protein to create real satiety and calm for me. Food that's easy to stick to, that's the version that actually gets me to lose weight over time. It's the one that I'll actually do again tomorrow. So this is what I'm actually testing right now for the next 2 weeks. Food-wise, 3 meals a day, 50 grams of protein at breakfast, 50 or maybe 30 or 40 at lunch, and then whatever's left over for dinner, somewhere around 15 to 30 grams of protein. So that lands me somewhere between 100 to 130, 115, something like that, grams of protein per day total. And in that range, I have found that I feel calm, secure, well-fed, and in a slight calorie deficit without even really having to try to force one. Then for exercise, I'm adding in more cardio, as I said, the easy kind and less weightlifting. So I'm trying to do just 1 exercise per day for weights. And if I can't manage that, I'm letting that be okay as well. The cardio is my 30-minute swim. I like to call sleep swimming because I go really slow and I just let it be boring and meditative. And before I know it, it's over. And then I do my slow walking, 2 miles on my treadmill while I'm working because my injuries don't give me another option. Just enough movement, not a maximum amount. I'm deliberately not pushing hard here on either the food or the exercise side because I notice that when I'm pushing really hard all at once, I always crash and burn. I've tested this enough times over the past decades to trust that fact. So it's slightly more intentional for me. Not a lot, just slightly. Just some more cardio, a little bit less weightlifting, and deciding my food ahead of time. And when I let things go willy-nilly, like I did with the sandwich, I end up eating 1 or 2 carb-heavy meals because that's the fastest, easiest option in the moment. And that's just how my body works. The goal is to make the easy choice already have enough protein built into it for me. An important note is that I want these things to be part of my life all the time, not just for weight loss time. I really like these things. And when I think to myself, let's say the scale doesn't go down for whatever reason, it's a very easy thought for me to go, well, it's not going to change anything because I really like what I'm doing. That's how we know once we finally dial it in and figure out what works for us, it's going to be permanent and sustainable. So because I thought through this, my plan is no medication until I've run this particular test long enough to see whether it creates sustained weight loss. I want this next 2 weeks to show me whether this particular protocol, the movement and the food, the consistent protein, easy cardio, deciding ahead of time, if that's a piece that can click this into place as far as weight loss goes. I already know that these pieces work individually. I've tested each of these things over the last year or two. So now it's about becoming the person who actually does 130 grams of protein as a day as a default, no exceptions, because I actually like how it feels. I do know that it's going to take some time to put that into place on most days, but now I truly believe in it rather than going, I wonder if this is going to work. And I've got exercise dialed back in after this crazy year that I've had with the surgery and the steroids and the lung issues. So right now I say I'm stuck at 178, which is where I landed after the prednisone stuff, after I lost a bunch of that weight. But I'm still about 5 pounds up from my lowest where I was before I went on prednisone, which was around 173, 174. So my first goal is getting back to 173. That's 5 pounds. Over the next 2 weeks, I want to see at least 1 or 2 pounds come off there down to 175 or 176. If that happens, I'll know that this particular protocol is actually working. And then I go to work on the next 5 after that. 5 at a time. One last thing I wanted to mention before I wrap up. Maybe you do this too, so maybe it's helpful, but I myself keep falling prey to social media. I'll see some gym bro on TikTok randomly saying, you just need to eat rice and chicken, potatoes and beef, and the weight falls off like crazy. And as a 43-year-old woman who's dieted for nearly 30 years, that just doesn't work for me. And I know that. But there might be a day or two where I go try that, and then I'm coming back from that again. And I just still catch myself looking at other people's protocols and what other people are doing and comparing myself. So I'm working on stopping that too. And that's part of why this takes as long as it does too. Real life, stuff you see outside, blogs, podcasts, other people's opinions on social media. It keeps interrupting. It's just noise coming from my phone, right? But still trying counts. And it's normal. And it's okay to have a little setback. And it's not a signal that I'm failing. So stay tuned. This is where I'm at right now. So I want you to take a second. Let me know your version of this in the comment section. Let me know where you're at. What's going on for you? What is your kind of go-to protocol of what works for you for weight loss? And I don't mean the intense, perfectly being a nutritarian works for me. Because listen, that works for everybody. But can we actually maintain it? Slim Fast, Weight Watchers, all those other things, those work as well if you can maintain it, which means they don't work if we're not maintaining it. Right? So I want you to think a little bit about what actually works for you in this middle range that's not so tough to sustain, but still creates weight loss. And if you've never thought this through before, I'd love to talk to you about this. If you want to find your own version of this, same process, your protocol, your protein numbers, your version of deciding ahead of time. That's what I do 2-step calls for. They're free. They're only 15 minutes. And what we do is we get on Zoom and we build an actual meal plan that works with your life right now, based on what you like and your own history. And then we figure out together whether private coaching maybe with me is a good idea, or whether joining Restore is a good idea, or if neither of those are the right thing, you can still walk away with that meal plan either way. So you can sign up for one of these 2-step calls with me at setpointscience.com/2step. Until next time, remember that still trying isn't the same thing as doing it wrong or failing. So maybe try a food plan that feels doable and realistic for you and combine it with some exercise, a little bit of exercise if you're ready for that. Give yourself 2 weeks or more before you decide whether it's working or not. Make some shifts. If it doesn't feel sustainable, then change it a little bit. I know that I'm really grateful for giving myself this next test instead of giving up for the weight loss medication. So thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next episode.